Welcome back to the Napoleonic Wars, guys. Today we have those most distinctive of troops, the Nassau Infantry, in their green and buff/tan strapping or belting. Anyway, these guys are very distinct, they stand out, and they've got a pretty interesting history, so let's get into it. Before we start, do please like and subscribe so you don't miss out in the future. Also go and check us out on Facebook, link in the description down below, so that you can always be kept up to date with what's going on, and share the projects that you're working on. So the Nassau started off with the French, and ended up being his mortal enemies. So let's start painting some troops, shall we? So first up, we need to prep our troops, so let's use a black spray paint. Do a couple of coats, don't do one thick one, just to get them covered. Then gather your paintbrushes, your paints, and your tools. Clean up the sprue, and I like to paint them on the sprue, but if you don't, now's the time to chop them down and get them ready for the painting. So first up, we're going to use German Camo Bright Green from Model Colour. It is quite bright at this stage, but don't worry, it will get dulled down later on when we apply our washes to it. So a little bit of history. So the Nassau Infantry during the Napoleonic Wars were an interesting group, as they had a rather unique role in the shifting alliances of that chaotic era. Initially, the Duchy of Nassau, a small German state, sided with Napoleon and fought under the French banner. Their troops participated in several major campaigns alongside the French, including the disastrous Russian invasion of 1812 and also the Spanish campaign. After Napoleon's fall, though, Nassau switched sides and joined the coalition forces against him, so by the time we get to Waterloo, the Nassau soldiers were fighting alongside the British and Dutch. A real 180-degree switch in loyalty. And so at this stage, as you can see, we're not worrying too much about the detail, we're just more worrying about just getting the green onto the men, and don't worry about going over anything else at this stage. We're going to be painting those up later, so just make sure you get your men covered first, get their uniforms covered. Next up, we're going to be using Army Painter Uniform Grey, and for this we're going to be doing their greatcoats and some of the trousers. So a little bit of a mix. For the trousers you could do them white, you can do them green, you can do them brown or grey, so just kind of go to your heart's content. For me, I've done a few in white and a few in grey, but the remainder and the majority are going to be in green. Greatcoats are grey, and on the backpacks, again, some of them have their coats rolled up, so again, do those in grey also. Despite being from a relatively small state, the Nassauers were highly regarded for their discipline and effectiveness in battle. They weren't the flashiest of troops, no glittering uniforms like the Imperial Guard for instance, or daring cavalry charges, but they were stalwart and reliable. At Waterloo, they fought in Wellington's army and were stationed in key defensive positions such as Hougoumont, the famous farmstead that saw some of the battle's fiercest fighting. It was actually in fact some of the Nassau soldiers who were the first to confront the French skirmishers who were attacking the farm, because they were out front in the sort of woodland area. Now we're going to use model colour yellow-green to do the distinctive sort of yellowy buff cross straps and cross belts on these chaps, which really makes them stand out. I would highly recommend you use a fine detail brush here and just take your time. So the Nassauers, they had a distinct look to them. Their green uniforms made them stand out from the sea of like the red-coated British or the blue-clad French, or the sort of black/dark blue of the Prussians. It gave them more of a light infantry vibe, I guess you could say, which was quite fitting because many Nassau units were very skilled at skirmishing, often engaging in quick, mobile, sort of often chaotic firefights, where their marksmanship and agility came in very handy. Their ability to harass the enemy and scout out was very, very useful, made them very versatile troops in any army, so they were good troops, that's for sure. So at this point, I'd just like to give a big shout out to Bruce Schmidt. He's the chap that actually requested this video. He's also requested one on Brunswickers, which will be getting released shortly, before, in a few days or weeks. So yeah, thanks Bruce for the idea, and if anyone else has ideas, let me know in the comments below. So next up we're going to be using game colour Bone White, and we're going to use this for all of the skin. It is quite pale, but that's okay because once it's dried we're going to go back in using the Army Painter Speed Paint Peachy Flesh, and that's what we're going to use to then bring it up into more of a, instead of a sort of semi-dead look, into a living look. So yep. That said, however, if you are just going for a pure speed painting session, then you don't need to apply the wash. You can just go with the one coat, and then the dark brown wash will do its piece for that. In my opinion, one of the more remarkable things about the Nassau troops is their contribution to the multinational nature of Wellington's army at Waterloo. It wasn't just the British effort, nor was it just a Prussian effort. There were Nassauers who were fighting alongside Dutch Belgians. As I said, you got the Prussians, you got Hanoverians, Brunswickers, many nationalities. So for the Nassau troops to be part of that and to sort of distinguish themselves the way they did is very impressive. However, having a patchwork coalition like that wasn't always seamless, and there were definitely language barriers and also, to a certain extent, mixed loyalties. But the Nassauers themselves held their own and proved to be a critical piece of the force that ultimately defeated Napoleon. So, as I said, good quality troops. Next up, we're going to go back to game colours Leather Brown, and we're going to use this for the muskets and also for their packs. It is a nice colour, although I would definitely recommend that you just add a little bit of water or a little bit of flow improver to your paint just to make it go smoothly. And if you need to do 2 coats, that's perfectly fine, better than doing 1 thick coat. So I guess, while they might not get the same spotlight as the British or the French forces, the Nassau Infantry played a very important and dynamic role during the Napoleonic Wars. Their journey from fighting for Napoleon to helping bring him down is one of those interesting quirks of history, I guess, that shows how fluid alliances were during that period. And for a relatively small contingent, they certainly left their mark on some of the most pivotal moments in European history. So I think for every force, it would be well worth painting up a couple of bases. Whether you're the French, whether you're the British, they can definitely come in handy in a tight spot. So yeah, get some painted up for your table. Next up, we're going to be using game colour Silver, and we're going to use this for the metalwork, so the bayonets, the barrels, etc. on their firearms. Yeah, it's a nice colour. It goes quite smoothly. I'd still recommend that you add a little bit of flow improver or water to the paint just to make it go smoothly, but it is good quality, one of my favourites. So do comment down below what you're currently working on for your forces. I mean, I've just done the Dutch Belgians shortly ago. We've got the Nassauers here, and we've got some Brunswickers coming along shortly. So I'm starting to get the Allied forces, I guess you could say, built up. And I quite like the fact that a lot of them, although the uniforms may have changed a bit, we can definitely use them for either side depending on the time period. So that's quite cool. But yeah, let me know what you're working on. Have you got any Nassau troops or Brunswickers in your force? I always love to get to this stage of painting once those sort of the first initial block colours are done and we can get the wash onto them. So the washes, we're going to be using a dark brown all over, and then the Army Painter speed paint for the flesh. If you go to the YouTube channel, I do have my video on how I make the washes, so go and check that out. Then once that's dry, we're going to go back in with highlights, and the highlighting, we literally just use the original colours again, because you use a dark wash which dulls it all down, and then you go back in with those original colours just to highlight, and that's part of the speed painting process that I use, and it works a treat. Then we've got the basing, so you could do them very basic and not do anything, just leave them the green, plastic as they are, although I always feel we need to give the bases as much love as the miniatures, just so they stand out nicely. So you can use flock, you can use static grass, clump foliage, whatever makes them look good. And that way your pieces will look good when they're on the table. And finally, we get to the results. If you haven't already, do please like and subscribe. So there they are, guys, our Nassau contingents marching forwards, ready to take on the French, or the Russians, or anyone else you fancy them to be fighting up against. I'll be honest, I'm pretty happy with the way they came out. As you can see here, we have used the French sprue from Warlord Games for them, because the uniforms are reasonably close. Are they 100%? No, but they are still pretty good, so we've used the French there for that specific purpose. If you would like to support me and the channel, just go over to the Coffee channel, link is in the description down below. You can buy some rule books, you can make a donation, do whatever you fancy. But yeah, I think overall these guys have come out really nicely, and I would love to hear your comments down below. What did you think went well? What do you think needs improvement? And are there any tutorials you would like me to do for you in the future? Alright, thanks guys, take care.